pumped up for this?
I don't want to act like I know anything about them.
We need to find you a hobby. Numenarian.
Numenorian?
I don't know.
You're guessing too.
Yeah, I'm happy. Need to look this guy up.
Jerk McKinnon. And Kelsey, let me just say, please don't hurt me. I mean no ill will.
The final frontier.
Like that's not weird. When you said favorite co-host, I had a feeling it may have.
I'm here for you.
I'm prepared to delete this entire podcast by about week 6. Gregory the Goat, the trophy that we all strive to attain. The collective we, everyone who works on this podcast, is stupid. Welcome into the second edition ever of the Unpremier League podcast, the UnpremierCast.
We have made it back for week 2. I feel like that's an impressive feat at this point.
It is an impressive feat. That's Brandon Shangraw, and I am Matt Holm, and we are your hosts. So we're going to, the big thing we want to tackle this week is our it's going to be a disaster, but we're going to try to predict how the season goes and the playoffs and who wins.
Playoffs?
Yeah, playoffs.
Playoffs?
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs?
So yeah, we'll save some news and notes for later. We'll get to a few of the conversations we want to save for the end, including some mailbag from the listeners, the fine listeners that come from across the nation to hear our wisdom. So let's just dive right in. What's the best way to tackle this? Do you just want to run
Division
through
by
yours?
division.
Yeah, all right, let's do it. Starting with Earth. I think it's probably...
Earth. The final frontier.
I think that's how it works. Okay, so yeah, I'll just go through mine. I have the horse in his McCoy as my division winner here. To me, he's my top seed overall. It's Josh's team, Josh Mackey.
Return of the Mac.
Return of the Mac, yeah. And I pick him every year, it seems. I really do. I think I'm probably what prevents him from making the playoffs because he's been struggling the last few years, but hopefully he can break through my curse.
You're the albatross on his team.
I am the albatross on his team. And so we'll see how that goes. Sorry ahead of time, Josh. I think I said that last week when I picked your team as having one of the best rosters. But just looking at it top to bottom, one of my favorite rosters, and good management, good long-term owner, so he's not gonna stop paying attention. Not that anyone will, but that's just my thought. After that, I have the Godfoster, which that's my team. But I have myself tied.
It's a bold pick.
Yeah, it's a bold pick.
It's a bold pick,
I know. What am I gonna do? Suppose at the bottom? I'll probably finish there, but I don't want to start there. I have myself and Green Eggs and Graham, which is Caleb Quinones' team, tied for second in the Earth Division, followed by the Rogers of Madison County, which is a temporary team name, Molly Laughlin's team. Sorry to say I have her finishing 4th, but that's how I got that division.
Nice. Well, I didn't quite rank all of the division. I picked the teams I thought would get out of the playoffs or get into the playoffs from this division. So the first team I picked, not my favorite owner, but definitely my favorite co-host. The Godfosters. I've picked them to win this division.
When you said favorite co-host, I had a feeling it may have been me.
Maybe.
Yeah.
So I think your team is really solid this year. This was actually a hard one to pick because the other team I've picked one of my wild cards to come out of this division is the horse in his McCoy. I, with you, think Josh has a really good team this year. Plays a pretty active role as the season goes on. I think that's a really good sign. Again, you brought up Molly's in this division. We talked about her auto draft team, so I don't think they come out. And so I've only picked 2 teams from this division to make the playoffs. Matt, you to win it, and Josh to get one of the wild cards.
Yeah, that's pretty solid. No, I have 3 from this division. I think it would be a real bounce back year, and maybe I'm stupid. No, let me rephrase that. I am stupid.
We are stupid.
Yeah. So yeah, we are stupid. The collective we, everyone who works on this podcast, is stupid, and we're gonna be wrong. All of this is wrong. We should have said that at the top, but as a preface
it's
now,
really the level of how wrong it is. If we can get 1 or 2 of these right, it would be amazing.
The even concept of trying to predict how the season's gonna go based on rosters that will look nothing like they do now.
Sure.
Is absurd. There's no way we could be right, even if we were right. Now, if we do end up being right, it's not because we're that smart, but just because that's how things broke.
Yeah, it's more of this is a preseason pick. If the team stayed exactly like this and healthy the whole year, which will never happen,
of course,
this is how we think it would play out.
Right. So don't take offense if we don't like your roster right now. And if you do take a little bit of offense, then maybe make some trades or maybe just prove us wrong. Either way, your team is going to look different unless you just refuse to pick up guys or you refuse to drop guys or make trades. And I don't advise that because it will backfire on you. If you believe in your core that you have a great team, that's great, but that doesn't mean that you should avoid trades, avoid waiver wire pickups. That's all a part of making a championship team. Moving on to let's go down to water, staying in the same conference, the new division, the expansion division. I have 50 Shades of Forte, which is Luke's team, winning it, being a top seed, followed by Cam and Punishment, the Catcher and the Rice, and Numenarian Raiders. And it's going to take me a while to get that name down.
Numenarian.
Numenorian?
I don't know.
Yeah, you're guessing too.
Yeah, I'm absolutely
I should
guessing.
really look up what it's referencing.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but I only have 50 Shades of Forte coming out of this division, but I think if they're a strong team, I really, really considered putting Cam and Punishment, which is the temporary team name of Anna's team, in the playoffs. Really strong roster top to bottom, but they were the first team out for me.
So, I have a completely different view on this division.
I love it. I love that.
So water division, the new division, I think these teams came out with some really good keepers, and I think having the top picks really helped them out. And I think there's some teams in here that are good, and then I think there's some teams in here that are going to sneak up on you. So I agree, 50 Shades of Forte wins the water division and comes out of it with that top seed. But then I've got 2 wild card teams coming out of here.
Nice.
So half of my wild cards are coming out of the water division. I think these new teams are going to be very competitive this year. So followed up with, I think Cam and Punishment gets out easy with a wild card. I think they're actually competing for the top with Luke's team in this division. And then the surprise team, one of my kind of surprise teams, the Catcher and the Rice, I think they get really close, and I think they actually make it out. Maybe a tie, and you're looking at some tiebreakers there.
Certainly.
But I think there's going to be 3 teams getting to the playoffs out of this new group. I think it'll be a real surprise.
I think it will, especially to a lot of the older owners who've been around and kind of like,
right.
Not maybe big fans of hearing that, a bunch of these, new kids on the block coming in and still in their playoff positions. Though that's strong. It is a tough division. It was maybe the hardest division when I was looking at who my wild cards were. The toughest one to not bring one out of, because I agree, the Catcher and the Rice is a very strong lineup. Like I said, Cam and Punishment very strong. Even the Raiders are not bad.
I think I might have picked the Numenarian Raiders, but I wasn't sure I was going to be able to pronounce the team name.
Right, go safe route.
Absolutely.
Only go with team names you can pronounce. So yeah, let's see. That means I have I guess we both have. No, I have 4 and you have 3 from this conference, correct?
Right.
Right. All right. So yeah, win division going to the National Conference. I believe is what it's called, the American and National. I have Kelvin is for real. That would be your team, Brandon. I have you winning the division, but it's a close one. This was a very, very tough, very deep division. It may be the toughest division in football. Gronk with the Wind is my 2 seed, and I have them being at most a game behind you. And then the Cardinals of the Kremlin, I have them also getting into the playoffs, and also being right there. I mean, these are 3 teams. They could, of course, bring each other down a bit, so they may not have the top seeds, but there's no buys this year, so it doesn't really matter as much. But yeah, I think we'll have 3 teams from the Wind, and I am number 12 being a very competitive team, much better than they were last year, just not able this year to get over that hump.
Right. So I'm with you here. I mean, obviously I like my team and the division I'm in. I think it's a really good division, as you said. But I think this is going to be one of those places where every week is a real competition when these teams play each other, and you're going to end up with a lot of parity, which means the records are going to reflect that. So in this division, I really like Jordan's team. I think this is one of those selfish picks. I picked my team to get out of here, but again, just like you said, with Jordan's team right behind me, only because I feel like I'm going to get that win this year. I'm going to get that win against Jordan that's going to push me up. But I think Jordan's team could easily take this division, and actually the other 3 teams could not get out. So I really like your picks. Obviously, you picked my team, so I love that. But I've got 2 teams getting out of this division, and then the other 2 teams being very competitive, but actually creating a lot of parity because of that.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know. To me, there's so hard to know at this point. But looking at this division, that's the division I would be most. I'm really glad I'm not in it, because as tough as Earth is and as tough as water and even fire can look at times, it's the one that I'm like, man, these are 4 owners who are really committed, and they've got good rosters top to bottom. Even, I'm number 12 that struggled with those initial keepers. Really, we talked about last week, had a strong draft where to come out, a lot better, looking a lot better than they had been going into it. There's no weak link. I mean, no, I don't think all 4 teams have a winning record or even a 500 record, but, if you stuck them all in different divisions, you could easily be teams that could win their divisions, at least compete. Last, we have the Fire Division, and I have a bit of an upset here. I have actually east of Whedon, which is Aaron, a new owner. I have his team, him coming out on top. It's got one of the better team names, which I appreciate. And then after that, now this is where, we might disagree, but I don't have anyone else getting into the playoffs here. I have No Country for Old Manning coming in second, but missing the playoffs, and that is Kelsey's team, the defending champion. But we've seen that before. We saw it last year when I didn't make the playoffs, having won the year before. It happens a lot, so there's a lot of turnover and a lot of parity in the league.
Yeah, some churn there.
Yeah, there's some churning. Mm-hmm. And she's got a good team. I just don't see, with this many teams and this many good teams, I think she'll just miss out. Maybe a 6-8 team. There's nothing wrong with that. Maybe 7-7.
Sure.
And then Dante's Inferno and Legend of the Foals. Caleb Davis and Eric are the 3rd and 4th position seeds in that for me.
So I actually had a tough time ranking this this division as well. I ended up not betting against the champ.
Smart. It's probably smart.
So
yeah.
I think Kelsey's team.
And Kelsey, let me just say, please don't hurt me. I mean no ill will.
So I had the same 2 horses in the race too. I think East of Wheaton has a good team. I even think Dante's Inferno will compete.
Absolutely.
And Legend of the Foals has the potential with moves to be really good as well. But I just saw, looking at trades and how active, some of these people are in this division, these could be very different teams by the end of the year. But I'm gonna give the nudge here in a tie to the champ, the reigning champ. So I picked Kelsey to get out of this division as my last playoff team.
Yeah, that's pretty strong. And historically, the Fire Division is one of the toughest divisions in the conference. They're really, or in the league. I think they've been in the championship game. I could be totally wrong. I have to look it up, but 4 straight years it seems like to me.
They definitely have 2 championships.
They've had 2 championships, maybe just 3. They've been there 3 straight years. I know that in the championship game, winning 2 of them.
In the last 2 years, they've had 3 teams come out of that division into the playoffs.
Right. So I mean, we're having them both take a major step back.
Right.
So we're both very prepared to be proven wrong by that. The Fire Division is a fireball, is a wrecking crew, and they do not mess around. I mean, there's no weak link in there. It never has been historically, at least for the past few years, and I fully expect to be proven wrong.
Absolutely.
So let's get on to our playoffs. So you want to jump in first? I've been leading this whole time.
No, we were talking about this. I didn't really set up my bracket as well as you did.
You weren't prepared.
No, I wasn't prepared for class.
Yeah.
So I don't have my bracket set out as well as you do. We can go through your bracket. I think you probably seeded these things pretty well. But if we're just looking at how I think this thing shakes out, I really feel like we end up with a championship. If I've got my sides right, that looks something like Forte, the 50 Shades of Forte team versus and correct me if I'm wrong, the other side of the bracket, but the Josh Mackey's team is my other team in the playoffs.
Your other team in the championship. Yeah. I mean, they're both in the same conference, but it won't matter come playoff. There's no way for me to actually, talking about the commissioner rules and how what you can manipulate. ESPN sort of limits what you can and can't do as far as the playoff setting. Now, there is some things we can do to maneuver things around, but it won't be broken up by conference, so it'll all be everybody will be thrown in.
Right.
As far as I understand it. Of course, it's different this year than we've done in the past, not having conferences before.
It'll be based on some kind of seeding.
It certainly will. There's seeding, and there are and the high seed plays the lower seed, but there won't be. You won't play within your conference, I don't believe. So, so that's fine. That could easily happen, and that's a really good matchup. I have them both being the top seeds on the 2 sides of my bracket, both Horses McCoy and 50 Shades of Forte, like you did. But I had a couple upsets in there. Now I do have did end up. I mean, this was tough. It was a real tough because there's no bad teams that make the playoffs in my mind. but I still have a Horstens McCoy in the championship. And on the other side, it turned into all kinds of chaos. And I actually have Gronk with the wind making it to the championship.
Ooh, Jordan's team.
Yeah,
That's a good team.
It's a good team. I expect they'll be fully prepared and healthy. If their namesake, of course, plays a big role in that. So if it's just with the wind by the time the playoffs rolls around, I don't have that much faith in them. But if there's Gronk in front of that.
The great thing about Jordan's team is, one, he always picks out a great gift, but he's also always first to do it. So if you're looking at teams now, if you go check out Jordan's team, he's already got this gif up of one of Gronk's best catches of all time in the end zone. So that's one thing, never bet against the guy who's got a great gif. Right?
That's important. Yeah, no, I believe that John Madden first said that.
I think he did.
The Raiders.
As well as quarterbacks pass the ball and
right.
That.
Yeah, the important stuff. Yeah. So yeah, I end up having Josh winning the whole thing. And again, sorry, Josh, but the horse and his McCoy is my champion. And you had 50 Shades of Forte?
Yeah, I have 50 Shades of Forte winning this whole thing this year. So sorry, guys.
Yeah. So we've jinxed you. There's a reason we didn't pick ourselves or pick each other's teams. We want to actually have a shot when the playoffs roll around. So yeah, that pretty much covers the important part, or the least important part, depending on your perspective. Who cares what a couple guys have to say about fantasy league that hasn't even started yet?
Yeah, we're just two guys that don't know a lot of stuff.
Right. So let's jump into some news and notes now.
Hot off the wire?
Hot off the wire. Yeah, hot off the presses. No, that's really archaic. Hot off the wire is a much better thing to say. Yeah, some just news and notes from around the NFL and around the league. First of all, let's talk about the Browns quarterback situation.
That new football team, the Brands.
Yeah, the Cincinnati Brands. So they named their starter, the Week 1 starter.
And it is not Johnny Clipboard.
It is not. Well, it's definitely Johnny Clipboard. Is definitely going to start. He's the first-string clipboard holder, back up to Brian Hoyer. Now, obviously, this has some immediate impact in our league, as Manziel was drafted.
Absolutely.
Pretty early, we both said last week, and extremely early, it looks like now. How do you think this plays out? Do you think Hoyer is the starter for just the week? Do you think 4 weeks, 8 weeks, the entire season? What's your thought?
The big thing here is how the offense shakes out, right? Hoyer last year was really good before he went down with his injury.
It was a couple games. Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Well, but the difference is that team was structured a lot differently. Josh Gordon may not play for the beginning of the season, which could really hurt Hoyer. But if he plays decent, if that team is, 3-3 through the first 6 games, I don't think Johnny Football gets to see the field. I think if that team stays competitive, at least through half the season, that he's not going to get an opportunity. But if that team comes out and loses 3 games, 4 games, there's going to be a mass cry from fans and probably from ownership in that case to see Johnny Football. So maybe it's a good pick. Maybe you keep him on the bench for a while, but in a short bench league, it is hard for me to see keeping him around when you don't know if he's going to get an opportunity.
Right, I agree with you. I think it's a tough position for the Browns to be in. Hoyer is not some veteran guy they're just using to try to prop Manziel up. He's young too. He's young and he's pretty talented. He obviously has a lot of upside. And yeah, like you said, he showed flashes of being really, really good last year. And yeah, I think they're just see if there is more of that. If coming back from injury, if he can be that guy. I still think he's still just holding the job. I think if Hoyer's pretty good this year, or and they go 8-8 and he plays the entire season and he has decent or above average season, they'll trade him. I think they'll use him as a trade chip because they don't draft Johnny Manziel with the 19th pick, somewhere around there, mid first round.
22nd.
22nd sounds right. Yeah. With the 22nd pick of the NFL draft, unless they really want him to be the future. And you saw the pandemonium out of Cleveland when they drafted him. The fans want Manziel to be the starter.
Number 1 selling jersey.
Yeah, seriously. He's already a superstar, and he has not played a down of real meaningful football. So, look, they're not going to get rid of Manziel. I don't think that happens. At least, I could be wrong. But I don't see at the end of the year, if Hoyer's done really well and they've gone 8-8 or even like 9-7, I don't think they're going to ship Manziel off. I think they'll keep him for at least another year. Because he is so talented, there's so much upside, there's so much risk involved, but he's such a talented guy, which is really why Caleb took him, because there's so much upside. He could be better than RG3, he could be better than a lot of those guys who are the same type of breed as him.
Right.
But whether he can live up to that or not is obviously not looking great at the moment.
The other side of this coin is, I think this is actually the best thing that could have happened to Johnny Manziel. I think having him sit in the beginning of the season does a couple of things. One, it's not going to humble a kid like that. First of all, he's got too much of that inner, go and belief in himself. It's not going to humble him. But I think there's a lot of press right now that's coming out about that there are people in the league really looking to get a shot on Johnny Football, because of everything he's done and how he's in the news, that there are linebackers out there that really want to get a piece of him.
He didn't make friends with the Redskins.
He certainly didn't.
He's not definitely friends with them.
Yeah, his hand gestures don't communicate well with the teams.
Right. He's got some problems with birds. I'm hearing,
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
Him getting put on the bench and getting to sit behind a guy for a while and let some of this calm down before he comes out in the league and immediately just has a target on his face is a really positive thing for him, and he's going to learn a lot about being a pro over the first couple of weeks. Yeah,
and I completely agree. That's a great point. That it won't humble him, but it will at least force him to try harder. If he wants to be the starter sometime this season, which of course he does, he's going to have to step it up. Neither one of them look great in the offseason, during the preseason so far. They both look pretty ordinary or subordinary. They've both been pretty bad for the most part. Now, that's not totally on them. It's not a good offense. Outside of Jordan Cameron, there's not much there. Miles Austin is
Miles Austin?
Yeah, they got Miles Austin, so I should hold my tongue, because if the Cowboys don't make the playoffs, we know why.
It's Miles Austin.
It's Miles Austin,
absolutely.
Right. So, yeah, they do have that going for them, but I think that at the end of the day, whoever it is, it's going to be a tough year for the Browns quarterback. And I think that it's going to be a circus the entire season. Maybe it'll take a little bit of pressure off the Cowboys. There's another circus in town, and it's a little more chaotic than the Cowboys are. But yeah, do you think he's worth keeping on Caleb's roster?
At this point, I would say no. If there's any kind of trending news towards Brian Hoyer struggling, you'd want to be the first one to go back out there and pick him back up. But right now, this bench is so short, and there are just other players out there you could have, another handcuff, another guy that might get an opportunity, that I would personally probably not keep him on my bench, but I couldn't fault anyone for doing that.
No, yeah, and that's the big point. If we had a 7-player bench like you do in standard leagues, it would be a lot different, and I would absolutely say you need to keep him. Here and now, I'll have to look at his team to know really what he has, but I would worry about his depth and about, in this first few weeks when we know Manziel's not going to see the field, and maybe he'll play a few snaps, but even that I don't think is going to happen. I think it's Hoyer's job until it's not.
Right.
And then it is Manziel's job. But yeah, to keep him there, if you have a bunch of early buys, he's not worth keeping him. If you can survive and you can sort of get through and you're still winning games, you're staying competitive week to week, I would say keep him. But read the waiver wire, see what's going on with the Browns, with their coaches and what's going on in their camp. Because if things change a few weeks into the season, or they don't look like they're changing, he's not worth keeping.
I completely agree.
Yeah. So moving on to, let's get to the big news of the week.
Cheech and Chong?
Cheech and Chong, yeah, the Steelers' dynamic duo at running back. LeGarrette Blount, no jokes here, and Le'Veon Bell were busted, if you hadn't heard, for a DUI under the influence of marijuana.
What a great name to get arrested for marijuana.
Yeah, but we're not doing jokes. We're above that. We are above that.
It's a very serious conversation.
Yes, very serious. So the Blount got busted for smoking.
Being full of marijuana.
Right. For
Absolutely.
Activity unbecoming an officer and a gentleman.
The other thing is, this sounds like a date gone bad, right? It's two guys and a lady in a car. This isn't a good double date. Like, where's Blunt's date? Why aren't there 2 and 2?
I hadn't heard that yet. I didn't know who was in the car.
Yeah, it's Garrett Blount, Le'Veon Bell, and random woman to be unnamed.
So she's not one of the running backs?
No, not this year.
Okay. So neither of us, we talked about it before we started recording, neither of us really think there's going to be an immediate discipline from the NFL for these players. And obviously they're in violation of the NFL's drug policy. And they were in violation of the law, which is, no, don't drive under the influence of any, foreign substance like that. I'll just say this. The whole thing is stupid. I think I'm mad at both of those players. I'm mad at any player that is. I'm mad at Josh Gordon. I'm mad at anybody because look, if you want to do that kind of thing in your offseason, you want to do that, but that's great. But don't. It's too easy. You're too wealthy and too much of a position that it's so critical to your livelihood and your future. Just don't get caught.
Yeah, the sacrifice that you're having to make there is too large, right? Your opportunity is so massive. Why sacrifice for that? And if you're going to, at least be smart about it.
Right. Yeah. Don't put yourself in that position where you're endangering your future and your family's future because you just want to, get high during the season. Like, I mean, look, again, each their own. Mm-hmm. Do what you want to do. Just be smart, like you said.
Beyond both of our anger for stupidity,
right?
Really, the fantasy impact this year and the impact on the Steelers. Initially you had to worry. Like, I'm with you. I don't think any NFL sanction is going to come down until next year. So this really affects draft position maybe in the following season.
Right.
But this year, what you had to worry about is on a team that is the Steelers, that has a coaching staff that really wants to keep players in line, was Mike Tomlin going to come down with some kind of discipline before the NFL did? And from everything I read that's come out this week, the Steelers have decided to defer to the NFL. So I think this year, from a fantasy impact standpoint, no change.
You don't think this impacts either one at all? And that's a pretty solid position. Do you think, it may impact... Now, as far as, obviously, punishment from the team, the Steelers said they're not going to do that, but as far as their playing time, do you think they'll be punished as far as their time on the field, their carries?
Yeah, it's an interesting piece to note as well. If it was one of them, probably. Yeah. But right, they got caught doing the same stupid thing together. Maybe there's some safety in numbers in that.
A little bit.
But I'm interested to hear what your take is on that too, because the one other thing you always worry about, right, is distraction.
Right.
Does the distraction, because do they have to go to court this year? Do they have to appear at times? Does that mean they miss a practice or are traveling alone to a game? So there are some things in there that could come up that we're not aware of yet. But I'm curious to hear what you have to say on that.
I think not knowing who their third back is. I mean, very few teams we are familiar with that amount of depth, but and I guess you could look it up. But I don't know that they have anybody who can come in and that they would be willing to during the regular season say, you know what, I'm going to show you guys. Maybe for a few series, maybe they each don't play the first couple series of the first game, but each game matters too much in the NFL to make an example of them by not letting them play the entire game. Because again, like you said, this isn't the first guy going out and you're having that second guy you can plug in. This is the first guy and the second guy and the third guy who's there just in case. The third guy is only there as occasionally a third down back or as a fullback or to fill in case of injury. That's usually not the most talented guy. Most rosters don't have that many guys who are that talented. Not to say that Blunt is all that talented. And Bell, we've only seen 1 year. He looked pretty good his first year, but he just by sheer volume, he looked good. I don't think... If anything, I think that the Steelers may pass more a little bit instead of going to the ground game as much, especially initially, but long term, I don't think this has any impact.
Right. So I looked it up. Dry Archer is the third string running back.
Is it Dry or Dre?
Dre. It's D-R-I.
D-R-I. Dry. Oh,
however you want to pronounce that.
No.
But
I believe it's Jacques.
That's probably correct.
Yeah.
Rookie out of Kent State. So, I don't think there's anything special behind them. So, who knows what happens there. But I agree with you to that extent. I think this offense is going to be... we keep hearing this no-huddle offense is going to come out. So it may be more pass-heavy than we've seen the Steelers in the past anyways. So, is their value down a little bit? Probably just because there's now uncertainty.
Yeah.
But, we've already drafted, so we don't have to worry about that, right?
Right. Of course, I'm a Le'Veon Bell owner myself.
Yes, you are.
And somebody in the league, and I'm not sure who, is a LeGarrette Blount owner.
Sure is.
And so, there's a little bit of a worry if you own one of those teams, one of those players, but I don't have the fear. The only thing that makes me fearful is that the stupidity involved in that decision and the kind of comments they've made since then, especially Le'Veon, you're a little bit worried that they're going to get themselves into some trouble by just putting their foot in their mouth or by doing, having a second incident. So, of course, once you have a player who has a single incident, the NFL is pretty lenient the first time through, but we know how strict the NFL is on second time and third time offenders. So
repeat offenders are out.
Right. That's the worst thing you can be in the NFL. No matter what it is, what your type of offense, if it's your second of that type of offense, you're going to get punished, and it's going to be a long-term punishment. So you have to be wary of that. But as far as the immediate here and now, I don't have much, apprehension about either one.
Okay.
Let's get to our third and final piece of news. I do not know his name off the top of my head. Maybe you do.
Sam Baker.
Thank you, Sam Baker. Sam Baker, the starting left tackle for the Atlanta Falcons, really good left tackle too. One of the better left tackles in the NFL, just went down with a season-ending injury, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yes, that's correct. Yeah, I remember seeing the play.
So he tore his patellar tendon.
Yeah. Stepped wrong, just a random injury, and it's too bad. Now, that means Jake Matthews, their first-round pick, is going to move to left tackle. He's one of the best young tackles in the league already. Obviously, he hasn't played, but really hyped coming in. He has all the pedigree. He could have been a first-round pick last year had he come out. High-end first-round pick. So there may not be that much of a loss in that position, but you do lose a guy on the front line. So how do you feel that impacts the Falcons, the running backs, Matt Ryan, the receivers, all of that?
So, I'm huge on offensive line continuity.
Right.
And so normally this would be a really big red flag for me. But when I started to look into this and read a little bit about Sam Baker, what I found out was this is a guy that I'm, with you, always considered this guy one of the top tackles, and he'd gotten this huge, 6-year, $40 million deal, and so I was like, this is going to be a huge miss. What I didn't realize is that he missed almost all of last season with the same injury, but on the other side. And that in the last 2 years, he's only played 4 games for the Falcons. So he was a huge question mark for the Falcons coming into this year. And as much talent as he might have had, they had not had to depend on him at all for the last 2 years. So I think they were probably already looking at Jake Matthews playing that position long term, and maybe there's not a lot of change for them.
Yeah, maybe not. I would say, I agree with you. They're probably kind of more used to him getting injured, but we talked about them, last week a little bit, the rebuild offensive line, and, it's new and improved, but he was a big part of that. Now, him being out last year was part of the reason they were so bad on the offensive line last year, one of the worst in the league. And, so I think they went into the season expecting to have him. They had a Jake Matthews, they had a couple other pieces, and they're like, all right, we're good, we're solid, but you lose one of those core guys. Even if he's there, he's a guy that's, like you said, missed a lot of time before. Losing him does really hurt that offensive line. And, the continuity isn't there, and you're having to introduce a guy. He played left tackle a lot in college, so he's not new to the position. But at the NFL level, being a rookie, being thrust into that position, more times than not, it's a rough first year.
So do you feel like this is going to affect Matt Ryan in the passing game more, or Steven Jackson and the running backs behind him?
Yeah, I would definitely go with the running game. I don't have we've talked about Matt Ryan, just who knows how long this week could last, and just even off the record, but he's able to overcome a lot of those deficiencies. He's a very, very accurate quarterback, and he's got a lot of receiving weapons. He can get the ball out pretty quickly, and I don't think it's going to, the line will still be better than it was last year, but where it does really hurt, I think, is the running backs. And you have Steven Jackson, who's no spring chicken, and you have a bunch of young guys behind him, guys that I like as far as what I've seen, especially being on Hard Knocks, you get to see a little more of them. But, I think they'll struggle like they did last year with getting a ground game going.
So I'm kind of on the other side of the fence with this one, because I feel like with you, Matt Ryan is such a good quarterback, and with having those weapons back that they do, that they're actually going to be able to spread it out a little bit more. They're going to throw more.
Sure.
They're not going to get Peyton Manning type numbers where you're getting 5 men in the box all the time. But I think they're going to chuck the ball so much that they'll see less men in the box for running the ball. And I don't think Steven Jackson plays the whole year. I believe more in the guys behind him.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think the running backs stay really solid there. But with a rookie, the thing you talked about is at this level, I really worry about Matt Ryan taking, 1 or 2 bad hits from a rookie miss at left tackle. That's your blind side. That's why that guy's paid so much.
Right.
But again, he's got the pedigree and the size and the feet to make sure those things don't happen. So it's all really great right now.
Yeah, let's not forget, his father is a Hall of Fame left tackle.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so he definitely, like you said, he has the pedigree. And yeah, you could be very right. Matt Ryan's never had an injury history. I'm not sure he's really ever missed time yet in his career. One of the most durable quarterbacks, but those do add up. You think year over year, you're like, he gets fine. But you get up a little bit slower. Each hit, your injuries linger a little bit more. Those tweaks and nicks you get, they start to become a week or month-long thing instead of a day or two.
And when if that happens too much early on in the season, you get gun shy, right? We saw this with Tom Brady last year. The reason he had a down year was not a lot of belief in his offensive line, throwing the ball too quick, things like that. So you don't want Matt Ryan to get trigger happy after having that year last year that he did, already concerned about the offensive line.
Right, especially when, like you said, his weapons are so downfield heavy. He loves to hit him in stride down the numbers. If he's not able to wait for those guys to get in that position, yeah, it could be. You could see a lot of dinks and dunks, and you could see more actually running back receptions. But we'll just have to see. I think it does. I don't think it really impacts anyone's draft position all that much. Maybe half a round at most if if you're a league that still has a draft upcoming. But I wouldn't be overly concerned until there's another injury. If they have another injury, then I'm really worried. And then I'm looking around seeing what kind of moves I can make, see if I can maybe not ship out the guys like Julio Jones and Roddy White, but anyone else, even Matt Ryan, I would be a little more concerned about. Maybe you can get somebody who really values him a little bit more.
So we're still pretty high on this offense.
Well, I'm very high on the entire offense, but it does maybe, as far as like an NFL perspective goes, I do maybe take a win away from them.
Sure.
I do think it impacts them that much because, losing your left tackle is huge.
Is this, we use a baseball term, is this his WAR? So his win over replacement?
Yeah, right.
It's a one game?
Right, this is a one game. In the NFL, that's pretty big.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's pretty huge. So that pretty much covers all the news and notes. Statistical anomalies. The first edition of the year just came out.
It is a great article. We read it a few minutes. Well, I read it a few minutes ago. I know you read it yesterday.
Yeah. Caleb Davis authors these, of course.
Caleb Davis, and he came up with his own the Davis formula, which I really think is hilarious.
The Davis system. It's a pretty strong measure of draft grades. We have our own sort of just grades that we randomly assign based on our gut feelings and what news and notes we have.
As Caleb points out in his column, that our grades are based on absolutely nothing.
Right. We have, I'm actually going to read this part. The predictions filtered through the lens of previous bodies of work, wildly unpredictable assumptions about the upcoming season, and gut feelings, which actually I believe I had written originally. So, yeah. So,
Perjury.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to do something about that. No. That's where our grades come from. But for his, it's actually based in what he calls the draft and value index summation to grade the draft. Which is,
say that 10 times fast.
I will not, but I will say that the acronym is Davis, which is, I think, totally just random, that Caleb Davis wrote this article and has the system that the acronym actually spells out the same as his last name. What a wild coincidence. The Davis system, we'll just briefly go over it. We want you to read it. It's on the website. It's on Facebook as well. And will be on the league website once Brandon gets around to actually building that. Actually, I have to. You're waiting for me, really, more than I'm waiting for you. So, we'll have that up soon, we promise. But in the meantime, you can read it both on our league page on ESPN and on Facebook. But basically, Anna grades out as having the highest Davis score, 98.2, which is pretty meaningless because there's no highest or lowest possible number. But compared to the lowest grade, which is a negative 74.4, that's a pretty big gap. But there's a lot of math and a lot of really good analysis that goes into it, so I recommend anyone read it. Do you have anything to add?
No, I go out and read the article. It's a fun read, and we hope Caleb keeps printing these throughout the year.
Yeah, printing.
Printing, yes. Use an old school term. Typing
we'll get a few
them
of those,
down on his typewriter.
That would be a good time to have a noise, and go ahead and have something.
Some more sound effects there?
Yeah, some sound effects, but we missed that opportunity. Maybe we'll run a post. We'll see. No promises. So anyway, last we'll just get to a few mailbag questions that we did have this week. We'll start with, let's see, Caleb actually submitted one. Caleb Davis. He said, both Caleb teams graded out as a C in the draft recap. Which Caleb do you pick to have the more successful season? I won't name any names, but there are two owners in particular who would be very interested in your response. I think, of course, he's talking about Molly and Luke, who would be the most interested in hearing the response.
Must be, yeah.
Why don't you give your answer?
So the two Caleb teams, if we're going by the Davis index, this is what I found so funny looking at this a minute ago. Actually, Caleb Q looks like he has the much better draft, which would give him the advantage, so
Absolutely.
Using Caleb's own formula against him in this case, I would say that Caleb Quinones' team actually has the better chance of succeeding at this moment in time.
Yeah, especially when you compare it to an 89.4 for Caleb Quinones and then a negative 44.3 for Caleb Davis. Yeah, that's hard to argue.
Significant statistical difference.
He may have asked that question before he actually had gone through with the Davis system and graded it out. So yeah, I'm going to have to kind of agree with on that. Looking at the actual teams, which I'm trying to do now, slowly, but...
We were really prepared.
Yeah, we were incredibly prepared. Okay, I'm looking at Caleb Quinones' team right now. Robert Griffin, Brian Matthews, Pierre Thomas. I mean, we don't want to rehash everything we talked about last week, but we still love the receivers: Brandon Marshall, Larry Fitzgerald, Mike Williams, on the bench, Marquise Lee, Odell Beckham. They're really the top two receivers, and then having Jimmy Graham, the weapon that no one else can match unless Gronk ends up being healthy. Gives them a lot of great choices there. Don't love Brian Matthews, Pierre Thomas,
Yeah. So, and I'm looking at Caleb Davis' team: Tom Brady, AP, Reggie Bush, Kendall Wright, Danny Amendola. Looking at this team again, it looks like there's a lot of mid-level guys here outside of the running backs that are really good. So I think I'm gonna go with the Davis formula and our gut instincts initially, and I think Caleb Quinones has the better team at this point in time.
Yeah, and I had him as a playoff team. Let's not forget. So yeah, I can't change my mind now on that. So yeah, we're gonna go with to answer Caleb Davis' question. He is the worst team based on our analysis and his own.
The worst of the two Calebs.
The worst of the two Calebs. Yes, not the worst of the worst. But yeah. So that moving on to the next question, we had. Question from Jordan Funderburk, who said, which player taken in the first round, technically our third round, will end up being the biggest bust this upcoming season?
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Need to look at a draft recap here.
Well, I have it up if you want me to
perfect.
go ahead and, yeah. So, there weren't that many guys that I thought were bad picks in this round. I think that there were a lot of guys that you can count on. There were some that I wasn't too high on. I wasn't too high on Tom Brady being, like the sixth pick of the third round, or the first round I actually had of the draft, and a few others. I'm not as high on Andre Johnson. I'm not as high on C.J. Spiller, and Ben Tate. That's kind of the four that I'm maybe wouldn't have chosen for myself in the third round. So if I was picking one. Look, I'm just not a big C.J. Spiller fan, and seeing him even earlier today, fumble away an opportunity, I'm going to go with either Tom Brady or C.J. Spiller as my biggest reach. Not that they won't be that great, but I think maybe you could have gotten them a little bit later.
So is it biggest reach and best pick of this round?
Sorry, did I go the backwards way?
I don't know. I don't know. So I'll just start. The best picks of this round,
biggest bust was the question.
Okay, biggest bust.
Yeah.
Okay. So, biggest bust of this round, I've got to agree somewhat with you. Vernon Davis, for me, feels like he's going to be the biggest bust just because of how good he was last year.
Right.
Caught something like 12 touchdowns last year, maybe more. I don't think he's going to catch that many touchdowns this year with Crabtree back. So, still a great talent, ridiculous talent. But in that offense, I don't think he's going to be as good as last year, which makes him my third-round bust there. The only other guy I see there that I don't love is... Ben Tate. I'm not huge on the Cleveland offense. We kind of talked about the quarterback situation earlier, so I'm not in love with that pick, but I don't think he's going to be a huge bust. Probably still good value. On the other side of that, just to not answer the question, but the best picks in that round, I loved your pick of Andre Ellington. You've heard me gush over this dude over and over.
You've maybe taken a little bit earlier than most people have him, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I think third is where he should have gone, for my personal list. And then the best pick in this round overall, Jordan's namesake, Rob Gronkowski. Okay?
No question.
If this guy stays healthy, he essentially got him in the fourth round.
Right.
So this guy could be the number one tight end. He could beat Jimmy Graham if he stays healthy. There's a huge if on him, but I think that's the best pick in that round with Vernon Davis being my bust just at the value that he was taken at.
Right. No,
I think he's a great tight end.
Absolutely. He's still a top 5 tight end. And yeah, Gronk, if he's healthy, it's one of those things. But if he's healthy, if he plays 13 games, yeah, he will be the second best tight end in the league with a chance of being the first. I don't think he'll pass Jimmy unless he could play all 16 games. But if he does play all 16 games, I think is actually a superior value to Jimmy Graham.
Absolutely.
Especially where he was taken, like you said. I still argue that Jordan should have actually just waited one pick since he had back-to-back picks. He could have actually then said, he said, well, I took Gronk in the fourth round. Look like an absolute genius. Here It's our first round we're actually picking. Not quite the level of genius, but he can still he can say the last pick of the round, so it's pretty smart. And then there was just one other question, if I can pull it up. Oh, it's actually a question submitted by Matt, myself.
Matt Holm?
Yeah, we had some other questions come in, but they were all stupid and mine. So I'll just go with this one. And it was actually something that Jordan made me think of. The thought of, and looking back on this, it actually could have either been an absolute genius move or backfired entirely. But had Caleb Quinones, who of course had Jimmy Graham as a keeper, chosen in the first round to take Rob Gronkowski, because tight ends, of course, are now a flex option. I wanted to get your thoughts on that. Had he done that, would you see that as a genius move, or is having 2 tight ends that too much? Is it too risky because of Gronk? Is it too risky because you have all these other positional voids you haven't gotten to yet?
No, man, it is a great idea. It's an interesting question, because with our rules of being able to play tight end in the flex, you essentially take 2 wide receivers. So you're really valuing him against the joke pass catcher now, right? You value him against other pass catchers you could have gotten in that same round. It's a very interesting thought, more to the point because I feel like you socked up all the tight end talent, and it would have created this huge void in the next tier and could have pushed tight ends up.
Yeah, you could have caused you could have the market to crash on tight end. Yeah, and I think looking at who he did take, he was actually the 14th pick of the first round, the third round, first round he actually picked, but he picked Larry Fitzgerald. While a good pick, I think Gronk is a better value there, and I think had he actually done that, not that we're trying to drag down his, because I think we both graded him out pretty well, and I think I had him in the playoffs certainly, so good team, but had you done that, like you said, then you create this massive hole where the guys like Vernon Davis, of course, already being off the board, so the next guys are going to go that much quicker, and you'll be able to get that wide receiver in the next round, because I believe he ended up taking, let's see, we took him in the next round.
And the question is Gronk was drafted 2 picks later, so does it leave that void? And my answer would be yes, to the extent that you have one less team that still has a tight end. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you get into later rounds, when you're trying to pick tight ends up, that's one more team who's hungry for the same tight end you are, who you thought you could get, in the 6th, 7th, 8th round, who's now going to pick ahead of you or right behind you, and you have to make a very serious decision. So having those 2 amazing tight ends on one team would have been a unique challenge for the rest of the league to tackle.
Absolutely. There are so few sure things at tight end. Like, wide receiver, you have all those guys, your sure things. And like the league, everyone has down games, but you have no question you're starting them. With tight end, after Jimmy and after Gronk, Vernon Davis, guys like Jordan Cameron or Jordan Reed or everything, Dennis Pitta, that level of guys, they're definitely a step down. Mm-hmm. As much as we love the Jason Wittens of the world, they're not going to get to the end zone that often. With Graham and Gronk, they are the team's red zone target in high-scoring offenses, and they're the best pass catchers as well, if I can speak. So, yeah, getting both of those guys, look, it's hard to know. It didn't happen, but I would have been fascinating had it had happened, because then it gives you, of course, this monopoly, and then their trade value, people are coming to you all season long with these trade options. So, it's something to, at the very least, look forward to next season, seeing if somebody does that, if the guys like that are available. I think next year Gronk will be a keeper if he's healthy, and Jimmy will certainly be healthy.
It's a great question for an NFL segment.
Right, an NFL segment, exactly, yeah. We should do our own versions of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll have to get somebody. Jordan, we may tag you up for creating. No, I'm kidding, we're not going to do that. But yeah, that's pretty much all we had this week. Anything else?
No, that's it. It pretty much wraps it up. So appreciate you listening once again. We hope we didn't yammer on too much.
Yeah, we're timing in about 50 minutes, so we're getting down.
We're gonna need to cut it down a bit more.
We're gonna keep getting down. We're gonna try to aim for 30 to 40 is our general.
And twice
rule.
The sound effects.
Right, and we're gonna be adding more sound effects. They may come in post. You don't know.
I have witnessed your capacity for courage, and though we are worlds apart, like us, there's more to you than meets the eye.
This is pretty much the worst video ever made.
There you go. So yeah, we have sound effects. Anyway, thanks for listening once again, and next week we're going to try, we tried this week and it just didn't work, but next week we can try to start with the call-ins from the owners. Kelsey Funderburk will be our first call-in as the defending champion. We want to get her on the line. just get her thoughts on her team, on the season, on her division, and everything else. And we'll make sure to do that with every owner at some point. So a lot to look forward to, just a couple weeks out from the start of the season. And
good luck to everyone.
Yeah, good luck, and watch the waiver wire.
Up next, I hope you'll enjoy a skit by Pedro Sanchez.